Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're getting to something really, really fundamental for where healthcare is going. It's about how we get all these different computer systems in hospitals and clinics to actually, talk to each other.
The classic problem, healthcare data interoperability.
Exactly. It's been a huge challenge for ages.
And for this specific deep dive, we're really going to focus on one particular standard. It's being called the New Language for Health Data Exchange.
A new language.
Yeah, it's called FHIR. That's FHIR, stands for Fast Healthcare Interoperability Resources.
FHIR. Okay, new language sounds pretty important. So what is it, actually? Why all the buzz?
So FHIR is a standard. It comes from HL7 International. They're the big healthcare standards organization, Health Level 7.
HL7, right?
Yep. And you can think of FHIR as basically a modern rulebook, specs designed specifically for securely swapping electronic health data in, well, today's world, the digital world.
Okay, and HL7. I feel like I've heard that name for a while now. Is FHIR totally new, or does it connect to older things they did?
That's a really good point. It's not out of the blue.
Yeah.
FHIR definitely builds on the work HL7 did before, especially, HL7 versions 2.x and V3.
Right.
So it's very much part of that HL7 family. It's why organizations often look to FHIR. It has that established background.
Oh, okay, let's break this down then. If HL7 already had standards like V2 and V3, what was wrong with them? Why did we need a new language?
Well, for years, the big problem was just the lack of a consistent, easy way to share data. It really held back coordinating patient care. Now, older standards like HL7 V2.x, they were used a lot. In the U.S., something like 95% of hospitals used it internally.
Wow, okay.
But, and this is a big but, setting up those V2 connections, it was famously complex and expensive. The way the messages were structured felt, well, old, hard to understand unless you were a deep V2 expert. Didn't scale well for new stuff. And it was mostly just a messaging standard, like sending a note. It didn't really help you find or use specific bits of data inside that note once it arrived.
So V2 was complicated. What about V3? Was that supposed to fix it?
HL7 V3 was definitely an attempt. It aimed for a much more structured, comprehensive model for health data.
Right.
It brought in ideas like the RIM, the reference information model, super complex way to structure all health data, and CDA, the clinical document architecture.
CDA. I think I've heard of that.
Yeah, CDA was actually useful for exchanging whole documents like a patient summary. But the overall complexity of V3, it just meant it never really took off widely. CDA works for documents, sure, but FHIR is now taking over much faster for most new interoperability needs compared to both V2 and V3.
Why? Because it's simpler.
Simpler and designed to be easier to work with, more flexible. That's the key.
Okay, so FHIR came directly out of those frustrations then, aiming for something simpler, faster.
Exactly. And here's where it gets, I think, really interesting. A huge difference is that FHIR was built from the ground up to speed up and, yes, simplify IT development in healthcare.
How?
By using modern web technologies, stuff developers already know and use every day instead of some totally unique healthcare-only language.
Modern web tech. Like the stuff my browser uses.
Pretty much. FHI is built on HTTP, the basic web protocol. And crucially, it heavily uses the RESTful API approach.
REST APIs. Okay, break that down a bit.
REST is basically the standard way modern web apps talk to each other. Think about your phone app fetching weather data or posting a photo. That's usually REST underneath.
Okay.
It defines simple actions, create data, read it, update it, delete it, using standard HTTP methods like get, post, put, delete, tally. So with FHR and REST, you interact with health data using these familiar web commands on specific pieces of data identified by URLs. Like to get patient info, you might just do a get request to server URL patient field.
Yeah.
It's how web developers build things constantly. This makes moving data way simpler. And apps become more scalable because the client and server aren't so tightly linked.
That really does sound different from sending like rigid messages or whole documents back and forth. Yeah. It's making health data act more like, well, regular data online.
Exactly.
So what are the actual building blocks in FHIR, if not messages or documents?
Right. Instead of those complex structures, FHIR organizes everything around resources.
Resources.
Think of resources as defined modular chunks representing specific healthcare concepts, distinct addressable pieces of information.
So not one giant text file, but smaller specific bits.
Precisely. Think about trying to find just one lab result for a patient in the old systems. It was often like searching a huge document or decoding some cryptic message.
That got painful.
FHIR gives each key piece of data its own resource type and its own address, like a patient resource, an observation resource, which could be a lab result, or a blood pressure reading, a medication resource, a condition resource.
Okay, individual components.
Yep. And these resources have common structures, behaviors, APIs, makes them predictable, reusable. FHIR lets you grab just the patient resource or just that one diagnostic report using its URL.
Right.
This modular resource-based design gives FHIR its power, its flexibility. It breaks down the big information blob into usable parts.
And what format does this data actually take? Like, what does it look like?
It's flexible there, too. FHIR supports common formats developers know well. JSON is very common, super popular on the web.
Okay.
But also XML and even RDF for, like, semantic web stuff. Having options makes integration easier.
Makes sense. Now, security, obviously huge with health data. How does FHIR handle that if it's all web-based?
Good question. It builds in modern standard internet security. So using HTTPS for secure connections that us you see on banking sites.
Essential.
For proving who you are, authentication, it often uses standards like OAuth 2.0 with access tokens.
Like when I log into an app using my Google account.
Exactly like that. You're not giving the app your password, right? You're giving it a temporary token that grants specific limited permissions securely.
Got it.
FHIR also has specs for controlling access based on user roles, permissions, plus detailed audit logs to track who accessed what. And you can use things like anonymization, too. It really aligns with modern web security practices.
It really does sound like it was built for how we use the internet now, not 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Makes health data feel less archaic.
That's a good way to put it.
So what are the big wins then? Why should organizations switch?
Well, for the healthcare organizations themselves, it means simpler implementation, getting systems talking faster, smoother integrations. That can mean lower costs, more efficiency. Flexibility and scalability are huge pluses.
And for the tech folks, the developers.
Massive advantage for them. They can use the skills and tools they already have from building normal web apps.
Lowers the barrier.
Hugely. It speeds up development of new, innovative health IT solutions. Before FHIR, building a new app often felt like learning a whole new, complex language for every single connection.
Right.
Now they use standard web skills. We're seeing apps developed in, like, weeks, not months or years it used to take.
Wow. Okay, that's significant. But what about for me? For you, the listener, the patient, how does this actually touch my healthcare?
Yeah, this is where it really hits home, I think. FHIR is crucial for empowering you as a patient.
How so?
By enabling secure, potentially real-time access to your own health data and making it easier to share it. Often this happens through patient portals, making it simpler to see your own records.
Okay, seeing my data is good.
But it's more than just viewing. FHIR enables powerful new uses of that data that were really hard before.
Like what?
Things like sophisticated data analytics to improve population health, better public health tracking, speeding up clinical research, enabling precision medicine because you can get at that detailed, granular data for analysis. Being able to easily get and share that specific granular data, not just whole documents, unlocks enormous potential for your own care and for understanding health trends overall.
Okay, the benefits sound clear. Is everyone just, flipping the switch to FHIR then? What are the real-world hurdles? Can't be that easy.
No, it's definitely not an overnight switch. Adoption is growing fast, but moving away from those deeply embedded legacy systems, often running on HL7 V2, it's a big job.
Right. More than just tech.
Exactly. There are workflow changes. You need to figure out compatibility. Often that means building complex translation layers between the old formats and FHIR.
Mapping the data sounds tricky.
It can be. Mapping data accurately from old models to the new FHIR resources takes time, effort. You need to understand both systems deeply. Integrating FHIR properly with existing systems is key. And there's a learning curve for sure, especially for IT folks who've spent careers working with the older standards. Even though FHIR is designed to be easier, rolling out any new standard across a big organization takes time, resources, investment. Cost is definitely a factor, especially for smaller clinics or hospitals.
So it's a journey. Makes sense. How's this adoption looking outside the U.S.? Is it catching on globally?
Yeah, there's strong global momentum. In the United States, we're seeing government rules, mandates from CMS and ONC requiring FHIR for patient access, provider directories, data sharing between payers and providers.
So regulation is driving it there.
Big time. And groups like the Argonaut Project really push developing practical FHIR guides. All the major electronic health record vendors are now providing FHIR APIs.
Okay, what about elsewhere?
Well, look at Brazil. They're using FHIR as a core standard for their national health interoperability efforts. Israel is actively promoting it, putting budget behind it, legislative support to make data sharing easier, crucially, with patient consent.
That's significant buy-in. And how does this connect to something like India's big digital health mission, ABDM, that we've talked about?
Right, connecting the dots. Our earlier conversation on ABDM highlighted its goal, creating a unified digital health system, making data flow across a huge, diverse country.
Yeah, massive undertaking.
Absolutely. And to build something like that, you need clear national standards for data exchange based on modern, widely adopted frameworks like FHIR. Using the HL7 FHIR standard is actually recommended for interoperability within India's health systems. Now, designing for India means tackling unique challenges, right? Huge data fragmentation, different levels of infrastructure, languages, cost pressures.
For sure.
But FHIR strengths its flexibility, its modularity, being web-based, make it a really good fit to be a core piece of the puzzle. Its APIs can help connect diverse systems, simplify data sharing even where infrastructure is limited, and let people build localized solutions more easily. It provides that essential common language.
So FHIR is seen as having the potential to bridge these deep-seated interoperability gaps, not just in wealthy nations, but globally, even in complex environments like India.
Absolutely. It offers that modern, flexible foundation so different systems can finally speak the same language. That unlocks better data flow, fuels innovation, and ultimately supports better, more coordinated care on a massive scale. It's fascinating how a technical standard can become the bedrock for transforming healthcare for literally billions.
Thank you. That really puts the impact into perspective. As we wrapped up this deep dive, it feels pretty clear that, while getting health data to move smoothly has been this frustrating problem for decades, FHIR really is emerging as a powerful way forward, truly earning that title, the new language for health data exchange.
Exactly. It's that fundamental shift, right? Moving away from just complex messages or bulky documents to making those granular resources easily reachable using standard web methods. That core difference unlocks all the benefits we talked about. Faster development, yes, but also empowering patients with their own info.
And seeing it adopted globally, mandated in the U.S., recommended for huge projects like India's ABDM, it shows this isn't just theory. It's becoming the practical foundation.
It really is. And while that transition from older systems definitely has its challenges, mapping the data, the cost, changing how people work the push is strong because the upside for the system and for you, the patient, is just undeniable.
Right.
Standards like FHIR, they're more than just tech specs. They're the essential tools for finally breaking down those information silos in healthcare.
So maybe a final thought for you listening. Think about the potential impact on your own healthcare. What happens when all your health information, labs, notes, meds can securely flow between your doctors, the apps you choose to use, maybe even directly back to you?
Yeah.
What new possibilities could that unlock for understanding your own health better, and maybe on a bigger scale for things like public health, research, finding new treatments faster?
It really does make you wonder how much more insight and maybe control you could have over your own health story in the near future.
Indeed. Well, that's it for this deep dive. We hope this gave you a clearer picture of FHIR and why it's becoming such a crucial piece of the healthcare puzzle today.